If you haven't gotten your copy of Bare Naked Bravery, How to Be Creatively Courageous, then head on over to Amazon right now. It could be on its way to your house or into your device before I'm done introing this next episode. Today we have Martin Steller with us. Martin is a former monk who is currently using those skills and experiences to assist ambitious creative entrepreneurs like us to really make a difference. He himself is a brave creative all-around. He's writer, illustrator, marketing educator, teacher, musician, singer, psychology fanatic. So he's perfect for this show. All of those things we love. I was particularly excited to discuss this month's School of Bravery theme of timing and improvisation with him, specifically how that element improves our improvisational skills about how to practice building bravery. So this means we discuss meditation, we talk about the struggle between process versus progress, and then we take a deep dive into the subject of unattachment, judgment, and specifically how to kill your darlings, which is such a cool topic. I'm so excited about this. Martin also mentions a really practical suggestion for knowing when to act on a new idea, to put something on the shelf at least 3 times or until you find a hell yes about that idea. I love that idea. I've been trying it for a couple months since we recorded this episode, and I'm so excited about this. Also, if you are a School of Bravery student, then this is great because you get a sneak peek about Martin and how he does things, because Martin's going to be one of our guest experts in the School of Bravery in the next month or so. So keep your eyes peeled for that. You know, as a student of the School of Bravery, you get weekly office hours with me, you get 2 monthly master classes with me, and you also get access to all of the guest expert interviews and workshops that have been offered to the 2 previous students. And if you're a VIP student, then you also get one-on-one sessions with me and access to the school archives of previous master classes that we've done as a school. So all of that really sounds fascinating to you, then you should go visit schoolofbravery.com and you can learn all about it, and we can talk about doing an application call and getting you in on the bravery for yourself and your own business and your own creativity. In the meantime, I really think you're going to enjoy meeting with Martin and listening to his story and hearing where he comes from and what his skills are. So I give you Martin Steller. You're listening to Bare Naked Bravery, a weekly podcast hosted by me, Emily Ann Peterson. As a singer-songwriter, author, teaching artist, and creative entrepreneur, I encounter some really fascinating stories. I'm on a mission to reveal the depth and width of bravery and its benefits to creatives like yourself. More than ever today, our world needs bravery, unique bravery, from everyone. This is the place where you find it. There is no script or censorship today because that's how these facets of Bare Naked Bravery are in real life. So if you're listening with little ears nearby, please know that some episodes may contain mature language and subject matter. One of the easiest ways you can share bravery with the world is to send this episode to a friend or 2. Send them an email, text, or tweet, tag them in one of my Instagram posts, my handle is Emily Ann Pete, or leave us a review on iTunes. It takes seconds and can be done from your phone right now. Again, we need more bravery in the world, so let's be brave together. Are you ready for some Bare Naked Bravery, Martin?
I sure am.
Well, let's do this. So I am so excited to have you here. I have read up on you. I have done my little bits of research, but for someone who hasn't, can you kind of give me a general vibe of what you're about and kind of where you came from and how you found yourself here today?
I call myself the monk for entrepreneurs. Actually, people call me that. I used to be a monk, and these days I coach people on growing their business.
Okay. And what kind of monk were you?
A sort of like a Zen monk, quite similar to Zen. So it wasn't so much about the religious side, but more about energy management, state management, how to think, how to gradually improve yourself bit by bit, the Kaizen principle.
Mm-hmm. I'm so glad. So, we talk about in the book and on the show, we talk about resonant bravery. Mm-hmm. There's 3 forms of bravery. There's internal bravery, external bravery, when someone else is in acknowledgement of the fact that you're being brave. And then there's this 3rd form of bravery, which often gets overlooked and kind of also makes it confusing for people to understand what bravery actually is, because it's really subjective. But resonant bravery is that third-hand bravery or the second-degree bravery where you are seeing someone else do something brave and going, now that's bravery. And Benjamin, a previous guest on the show, nominated you for the show, which I'm so happy that he did, because I know this conversation is going to be really good.
I hope so.
Yeah.
When you say resonant, now we're talking about something really interesting, because in this whole monastic phase that I went through and the years after, resonance is a very fundamental thing in how I see the world and how I operate.
Wonderful. And talk to me a little bit more about that. And how did you come to that being a core subject matter touchstone?
Well, you're a musician, so you know about frequencies and vibrations and resonance,
yes,
right?
Yes.
If you cannot stop a guitar from humming if you sing into it, right?
Yes.
And that is a very normal, provable effect of physics. Mm-hmm. But between people, there is a very similar mechanism going on. There is a resonance when people are in touch with each other. And in fact, to a degree, science is beginning to catch on to this. And they have the mirror neurons that they talk about, where if, for example, in storytelling, if I tell you a story, then certain areas of my brain light up. And if we would both be in an fMRI machine, separate machines at the same time, while I'm telling you the story, then those same areas in your brain light up as well. So your brain starts to operate in a way that mimics mine. Mm. And that is a form of resonance that is happening all the time. And it happens on far more subtle levels as well. I mean, if you walk into, let's say, a place where people with trauma get treated, you feel something the moment you walk in there. You might even already start to feel an apprehension or a tension, which comes from not the nervousness of something new, but something seems to be tugging at you. Or if you're in touch with somebody who's very angry, no matter how calm you are, it's going to affect you in some way. There's a resonance between people that you can't prove, and maybe they will find out at some point.
It's very similar to like walking into a room where they were talking about something serious, and now they can't do that anymore because you're in the room. Mm-hmm. You can, even without their physical reactions or facial expressions, you can kind of tell like, oh, I just walked into something that I shouldn't be in. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, in your practice as a monk, talk to me about like, how did you make that choice to go into monasticism, and then have you left? Are you doing that in a different form? Talk to me a little bit about that.
I have most definitely left that world. I do not live like a monk anymore. That said, I do feel the same on the inside. So my mission, my focus, my values are very much the same as they were in those days. Just live a normal people's life. And how I got in there, I just met a couple of people and they said, you can come and meditate with us. It really worked for me. So I started going more often, started staying the night and helping out in the house and in the kitchen. And gradually I kind of became a member of the community. And about a year or two later, it became a very natural thing to then take the monastic vows, which is strange because I never had any sort of, in fact, I used to consider myself an atheist before that phase. I never had any inclination, no vocation. It just was something that very clearly was doing me a lot of good. And when the option came to take the vows, then yes, okay, let's do that.
And I just because I'm not familiar with the Zen Buddhism, is that correct? Mm-hmm. I'm not familiar with the monastic vows of that branch of spirituality. So
neither am I. I wasn't a Zen Buddhist. It was similar in a number of ways, in that Zen is very sparse. So there's very little in the way of a pantheon of gods. There is no complicated rituals. Dress is very basic. It's really a form of essentialism. And that's what shone through. And that's why I say it's similar to Zen Buddhism, because While the origin and the philosophy was a little bit different, the whole practice of it was very similar. Like, okay, so sit down and meditate. And when you're done, do your work and look at yourself, learn yourself, get to understand how this machine inside your head operates so that you can then start to tweak it a little bit and make it work better. Because in general, what happens with people is we don't notice what our mind is doing when we're not paying attention. Mm-hmm. There's this constant inner dialogue going on. There's always this chatter where you're asking questions, where you're thinking about the shopping you have to do and what you should have said to that person the other day and what you're going to say to them. And this runs unchecked. 90% of that entire inner dialogue, or monologue, if you will, is mostly subconscious. But it is in that process of your thoughts running themselves that you program how tomorrow you're going to perceive the world and yourself and how you're going to make your decisions. So what the monastery taught me and what I really practice when I coach people is how to get clarity and insight on what this slightly subconscious process is doing. It's there for you to tap into and notice anytime you want. But because Facebook or work or our spouse or anything will distract us from paying attention to it, it just runs there. And it does a lot of damage until the moment that you start to notice and you realize that there's a lot of mistakes in your thinking, or there's a lot of judgment about yourself, or there might be repetitive thought patterns about things that you've thought this whole process 11 times and it never results in any solution. And you don't notice. But when you do, that's when the magic starts to happen, because then you can start to modify the way you think, and that will then reprogram you for a different way of perceiving.
Mm-hmm. Now, I fully agree with all of this. So in the back of Bare Naked Bravery, in the third portion, I talk about 4 of my favorite bravery building tools. And one of the first ones is meditation, mm-hmm. because it mimics a very similar kind of practicing model that I am familiar with music. And in that you have to practice it every day.
Oh, yeah.
Or you get better at it over time. The more you practice it, the better at it you get. So for someone who is not, like, let's say, quote unquote, not very good at meditating, what would you tell them? There's
no such thing as not being good at meditating.
Yeah.
It doesn't exist. I often hear people say that, yeah, I tried it, but I can't quiet my mind. And no, of course you can't. If you would quiet your mind, you probably wouldn't be alive. You can't do that. It's not about seeing beautiful grassy hillsides and angels, or about being completely blanked out and not seeing them. Now, meditation is about bringing your attention to one particular point, after which it will instantly go to a different point. If you want to meditate on a mantra, for example, or a symbol, the moment you put your attention there, your mind is going to say, oh, look, squirrel, and off you go.
Right.
You then take your attention back to that same point, and it disappears again into something, and you take it back. And you disappear, and you take it back. And this constant repetition of bringing your focus back to one thing, that is a training that you give yourself, which enables you to extend that focus longer and longer all the time. Bit by bit, you start to increase. That then translates through in how you, in your daily life, think, decide, communicate, operate, how you see yourself. So you can't not be good at meditation unless you just don't want to, or unless you find it boring. But if you sit down and you put your mind on something while you're meditating, and you keep doing that, you just bring your mind back to the same point over and over again. And anybody can do that if you want.
There is definitely something to be said about the way that you practice something, and that you're not practicing so that you can get good at it necessarily. You're practicing it for the practice itself. Mm-hmm. And when in my years of teaching music, whenever I had a student who would come to me going, I'm not making any progress. Well, how's your practice going? Are you practicing? Uh-huh. And because it's not about the progress, it's about the process.
Yes.
And if you're not enjoying the process, or you are too stressed out about the process, then the progress itself will mimic that stress. So when it comes, tying that back to meditation and building bravery on a daily basis, that's, in my eyes, that's like, well, are you practicing building your bravery? Are you doing the thing? Are you actually meditating? Are you making an effort? If you are, and you're still not making progress, or you're still not happy with any results, then that tells me that the process of your practice needs to be tweaked. So either you're putting too much stress on the fact that your brain is like a squirrel brain, and you're putting emotional weight into that fact. That's eliminating some of your enjoyment factor, but it's not about enjoying it. It's about just doing it,
Yeah, exactly.
So
this is something that in Western society has kind of polluted the way we think, that everything has to be fun. And, there's a definite kind of individualist, selfish hedonism that seems to be essential for anything we do. And I'm not saying that you will only thrive, or you have to, you will only thrive if you put yourself through rigorous training that you don't enjoy. I'm not saying that you have to be austere or discipline yourself. But you can find a contentment in a practice. And you might not have to, and you might not really enjoy the practice, but the contentment and the satisfaction of knowing that you're sitting down again to do your scales or to practice whatever it is that you want to practice, that is very powerful. And if you take that whole, I need to enjoy this thing out of it, it becomes far more accessible to actually get into the deep practice of things. And I think that is a kind of a brave thing to do if you allow yourself to step into something regardless of whether it makes you happy or not.
Yeah.
Because you're putting your own interest to the side for a moment, your enjoyment, your happiness or whatever, so that you can then serve the practice. Right? You want to achieve some result or grow into some sort of talent or ability. And for that to happen, you need to be, for the best result, you need to be the perfect student. And being that is an act of service in itself. And I know that sounds kind of strange for people, because how can you serve? Because it's a tainted word. But actually, I think service is a really, really beautiful and powerful concept to use.
Do you find that, well, so this month is, in the School of Bravery, this month is the theme of improvisation and the timing of improvisation. So how do you see the practice of meditation and this kind of unattachment to outcome play a role in how you execute, like the timing of when you act on something? That's a big question. I apologize.
It's a complex one. Well, for me to act on something, there's a rule of 3 that I use. So when there's this really cool idea, this really wonderful thing that I should go and do, talk to somebody about or build, the best thing I can do is to put it on the shelf the moment it comes up. Explore it, maybe take notes, whatever, but don't act on it. It will then come back if it is valid and strong enough. And then again, you put it on the shelf. You do that a 3rd time. And if it then comes back, then it's probably a good idea to go through with it. Because what happens, very often we come up with an idea and we're in love with it, but not for the right reasons. And so then acting on it might be the wrong time. You might not have the right resources or connections, or it might complicate something else in your life if you start to dedicate time to this thing. So the first thing I always want to do is, let's just, chew on this for a while. And then before I get to act on anything, even if it comes back 4 times, 5 times or 100 times, if I don't feel that this is a hell yes, then I shouldn't do it. And every time that I've done something because it was, okay, why not? Hell maybe, it never worked out. There is no hell maybe.
Right.
So for me, there's only 2 states. There is something that I'm fully for, totally committed to, really into. That's a hell yes. And anything that's not a hell yes is a hell no. And this makes timing a natural thing. Because you can simply keep the idea as a valid possibility for whenever and revisit it and talk to people about it. And when the moment comes that the stars line up, etc., you will know. You will feel in your bones, this is hell yes, this is the time, let's go and do this. Mm-hmm. So the timing isn't something you decide. It's really something that you listen for the signs. There's a certain flow to life that you can notice if you pay attention. Mm-hmm. And if you occupy yourself not so much with what you think and what you want, but what the whole conglomerate of your own personality and the influences and the movements outside with people and companies and audiences, if all of that lines up, coagulates, you will know. You will know that this is the time.
I love that idea of waiting, because I think a lot of times people, when they hear about bravery, they think, or they see someone doing something brave, all they see on the outside is the execution of that feat of bravery. Mm-hmm. They don't see the amount of work or the practice or how many times it was, quote unquote, put on the shelf before that action was, that action took place. So I love that, because it really does points to the amount of consistent work that goes into, and the discipline that goes into actually making a choice. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I'm suddenly reminded of the what they teach you in writing, right? I used to be a copywriter after I left the monastery. And at first I started as a tailor because I was trained to be a bespoke tailor in the monastery. That failed when I started the company. So I left the monastery, started the company as tailor. It failed. And then I became a copywriter. And when you write, also if you write fiction, you're trained to kill your darlings. Mm-hmm. So the bits that you write that you think, man, I'm really, really rocking it now. Look at how cool this is. This is so beautiful. That bit, scrap it. Because that's the part that you're in love with. And that is not the essence of what you're actually trying to get on the page.
Mm-hmm. I think, when you're that attachment, because you're basically pointing back to when you say kill your darlings, like those are the pieces that you're really attached to.
Exactly.
But if you are trying to go through life by building bravery in an unattached way, like not judging the outcome, mm-hmm. because you're not in it for the outcome, you're in it for the process, not the progress. So killing your darlings is a wonderful reminder.
Yeah. But it is scary as hell.
Yes.
You have to be really brave to do that, because here you are trying to write a page or an article or a story or a book, a song, whatever it is. Mm-hmm. Whatever you're trying to build, it could be a new product line in your company, or it can be a project or a movement with people. You come at this from your own point of view. And even if it is something that is really focused on providing something of value to the community or to the world, it is about you. This is your idea. This is how you see things should work. This is what you want to do. It's me. It's all about you. And that isn't the wrong thing necessarily, but it can cloud your vision on what is really important and essential. Mm-hmm. You are behind this whole thing. And the bits that you are really excited about, the darlings, as you say, that's what you're attached to. And if you then scrap those, oh my God, what do I have left? Is that going to be it? Is it going to be strong enough, big enough, good enough, scalable enough? You remove exactly the thing that you think is the best.
Yeah.
Now, and to do that is a really brave act. But every author who does this, or every copywriter who does this, or I imagine a composer, will create better work. Because they do the difficult thing that here it's all about me. This has to go. Mm-hmm. That's a very brave, courageous act.
We'll get back to the bravery at hand in a second. But I wanted to remind you that I first began having these conversations both on and off the podcast because I was curious about what bravery actually meant. If we could build it, if so, with what ingredients. And I was so curious, I turned my research and personal stories of experiences with feats of bravery into a book. That book is called Bare Naked Bravery, How to Be Creatively Courageous, and it's now available in multiple formats on Amazon right now. So go get yourself a copy of Bare Naked Bravery, How to Be Creatively Courageous, and after you read it, let me know what you think. Now, because we do have a lot of entrepreneurs and business owners and career professionals who listen to the show. So what would be an equivalent of that with like cutting out a product that you're really attached to? And when would that be appropriate? And what would the timing of that look like? And how have you seen that played out in your experience with business? Because I know you've got it, the experience.
Oh yeah. I don't know any examples off the top of my head. Do you have anything in mind?
Well, I mean, so okay, let's use the notion of that your previous business before copywriting, you were doing work as tailor. So you had to kill that darling at some point.
Oh man, and it was painful because I spent 12 years in a monastery. For some 8 years there, I was trained to be a tailor, and I loved the work. And I'm not talking about altering trousers. I'm talking about measuring somebody, turning a 3D shape into a 2D pattern, translating that back into a 3D shape, and really hand making a suit. Really exquisitely high quality handmade suit. And I was passionate about it like you wouldn't believe, because not only was it wonderful work to do, it also put me in touch with beautiful people. And I was kind of like seeing myself as a curator of a dying trade. Because in the fashion industry, overseas production, it's killing the authentic tailoring business.
Yeah.
So to come to the realization that I'd made a mess of it and that I'd gone bankrupt was shocking. And at first I didn't want to admit, right? The moment shit hit the fan, it was, what can I do to rescue myself? So I got a loan and I moved into a different city where I'd be closer to a better network. And, let's reboot this thing. Now, that didn't work as well as I'd hoped because it takes a long time to build up the network. So I started writing articles for people and making a bit of money. And that turned into writing sales copy. And so in the end, I ended up being a full-time copywriter. And I still had this tailoring company that I was trying to still also work on and grow because it's so important. It's so beautiful. And look at all the bolts of fabric that I have here that I haven't even touched yet. And let's find this, can't give this up. My whole life, I'd hung my whole identity on that particular activity. And I wasn't able to restart it. And then came the moment that, okay, so now I'm making my money with completely different work. I'm location independent. And actually, I'm kind of burnt out. So by that time, it wasn't a brave thing to make that decision anymore because circumstances had changed, I had changed, and I was ready to just let it go to sleep. But I was very much attached to it. If I'd have had the clarity at the moment of going bankrupt that I have now, I would have said, I'm going to get a loan so that I can pay my debts, and then I'm going to go into a different kind of work. And it could have been that I would decide copywriting or something else. But I couldn't. I wasn't brave enough to face that, listen, dude, you don't have the marketing skills and the business acuity to make a tailoring company run the way it should. I couldn't accept my defeat. And I think that's a great thing to do. So
it's a really difficult situation to find yourself in when you have so much passion about a subject. So, I mean, if you could go back and talk to or coach previous version of Martin going through that moment of like the do or die moment, how would this non-attachment come up in that coaching or in that discussion?
I would want to ask that Martin, what drives me? Why am I so hung up, so attached to this particular thing? Because I came at it with the wrong motivation. The tailoring was a darling for me. It wasn't anymore about the doing the work, lining up the stitches beautifully and cutting a suit really to make somebody look like $1 million.
Yeah.
There was something else in me that made me want to do this. It was a sort of egocentric, self-involved, like I can do this. I can prove that I can make this. And I am one of the best tailors in the world, damn it. Or I'm going to be in that number. And it was about me.
Yeah.
And that is something I couldn't see back then.
Have there been, I'm thinking back to like my moments of, times when I've had to kill some darlings. And that's been like, there was working with, I'm going to not name names for obvious reasons, but working with
particular people on various projects and having to break free from my attachment of like making that relationship, that working relationship pan out like I thought it was going to.
Oh.
And realizing like, okay, this is not working. Like, this is not what I signed up for. I have so much writing on this working relationship and this project, but I have to cut this cord.
Yeah. That is something. It happened only once or twice. I was lucky that as a copywriter, I never ended up with a client from hell, except for these. There's one person that I remember that was really, I made a mistake in how I handled the relationship, the client relationship, which put this client on a pedestal, which is not how things should go. You should either, meet on equal level, or you should have a certain leadership in how you work with a client. Because you're being brought in as the expert on something. Mm-hmm. And that means that you need to stand your ground to a certain degree as to what a client can expect from you, how they can manage you. Well, I put this person on a pedestal. Somebody on a pedestal can only look down on you. And so the dynamic was really, really messed up. And this became a 4-month, 5-month, just dreadful experience. Mm. And nothing that I can blame her for, right? I started the relationship on the wrong foot, because she was so successful and look at all that she'd accomplished and wow, I can work with a client like this. But totally the wrong way to do it. Mm-hmm. Now, if I would have been brave, I would have cut that short right at the time of the warning signs. I was, okay, look, this isn't going to work.
What were some of the warning signs that you remember? I'm also nodding my head and like, yep, I know how that goes. Because I've been there I've been there with cello students who I taught way too long.
Yeah.
I've had, marketing clients who I ignored those signs. Mm-hmm. I started bullshitting myself about like, oh, surely this is going to work out, But what were some of the warning signs for you in that situation?
Endless revisions to tweaks to this and more questions. And that was a very clear thing that, no, I don't have control of this situation. This is not a healthy relationship. And I ignored that because it was such a great opportunity. Because if I get this right, man, she's going to give me work all the time and I'm going to be introduced to people and look at the opportunities. So I had this idea that if I could only make it work, it would sort itself out and it would be very beneficial. It'd be worth the struggle. To get through that struggle, it's going to be acceptable. But in reality, I knew this is never going to work. And I ignored that. I wasn't brave enough because I was afraid to lose these opportunities. And that is something I see with a lot of clients, that they are afraid to make an important decision that would have massive positive consequences for them because they're afraid of what is going to be lost when they let go. And that is a very toxic thing in your life. If you are attached to something all right or something good to such a degree that you won't let it go in order to have something fantastic and awesome, then you're not making the best life that you could have.
Mm-hmm. In a previous mini episode that we've done in the month of taking risks, where the subject was all about risk, we talk a little bit about like, what are some of the upsides of taking risks? Because there are some, and oftentimes risk gets a bad rap because it does imply that by taking this risk to move into something, you're also moving away from something else.
Well, if it is an entrepreneur who thinks that way, they might be better off looking for a day job.
Right.
Because being an entrepreneur is a risky thing 24/7 until you retire or sell your company. Mm-hmm. It is a fundamentally... I wrote an article the other day for my list because an ad I saw from Ernest Shackleton, who went to explore the Antarctic. He posted an ad like 150 years ago saying, men wanted for perilous journey, long days with no light, safe return uncertain, very challenging, fame and reward in case of success. Apply at this address. It is not actually known if he actually posted that ad, but it's known as the Shackleton ad. He talks about somebody who is willing to go and risk everything, including his life, in return for something. He's talking to the spirit of the entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. It's exactly the same profile that you need if you want to make it as an entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. And if you're risk averse as an entrepreneur, man, you're in for a really, really rough ride. Because being an entrepreneur is risk all the time.
Yeah. And so when we're killing these darlings, when we're making these hard decisions and improvising within this risk, basically. What are some other, I'm just trying to come up with a good list, because I love my lists, but a good list of what are some of the implications of killing darlings. We've already talked a little bit about the being not attached to outcome, or leaning into the unattachment. And we've already talked about saying no to lost opportunities and putting things on the shelf. If you have an idea, put it on the shelf 3 times. The hell yes, hell no concept.
That's a very wonderful distinction to live by. That makes life so much easier. It really does. But again, that is something you need to be brave to do, because to say hell no to somebody or to an opportunity, somebody can come at me and say, Martin, I have a business idea. Let's partner up. Let's go and do this because it's fantastic. And it will have everything, check all the boxes that, yes, if we do this, it's going to work. Except it's going to take 20% or 50% of my working hours in order to run this project, which means that my core activity, building my business as a coach, is going to suffer. So then you have to say, my dear friend whom I've known for 25 years, I love your idea, but I'm not going to be able to do this. That's painful. That's difficult. And you need to be brave for that. But what they bring to the table, that idea, that is their darling. And it might be something really good that they should actually work on and develop, but it's not yours. And to have that distinction, to be very radical, to be able to say, I have an essential focus. There's these things that matter to me. What does not fit in should be outside. It's like in a relationship, when somebody gets married, well, you make choices about what will and won't happen. You go on your holidays together. You don't go dating with other people. You don't leave your clothes strewn around the house because you now share the place. These are things that you change, and it's a choice you make. And you make that choice, which implies a commitment to the exclusion of a number of things. And that is something you want to apply in your life in a more general sense as well. People find it very difficult to have that rigor in the decisions that they make about what does and does not come into their life. But the more you stay focused on what is essential in your life, the more people are going to respect you. They're going to see that you're a committed person, and that commands respect. You are going to feel a lot calmer. You're going to be a lot more undisturbed by all kinds of other calls and emails and opportunities that pull at you. And you will experience your life in a much more creative way. You allow yourself to see far more opportunities when you eliminate. And that is something that the monastery really taught me. That people often think that limitation means you impoverish your quality of life, when in reality, the more you limit yourself, the more freedom you create in your mind, and the effect of that on your quality of life is enormous. I mean, I'm a really happy chappy these days, because I don't allow anything in, or at least I try to be very radical and deliberate about what I let in, and I keep things really simple. I keep myself very limited. My days are planned and structured, and my creativity happens at those moments, and my coaching happens at those moments. And while you might think that is like a straitjacket, well, it's a straitjacket that I will never want to take off, because the consequence is that I have focus, I am happy, I can resist downturns. When I went bankrupt, I didn't suffer or scream. I just figured, okay, let's go and find a solution for this. And it's only by eliminating everything that's not essential that you get to this kind of, it's like sediment in water. If you stir a glass with sand in it, it's murky. If you wait, it settles and you get clarity. And that's what you get when you eliminate things.
And I can't help but make the connection between meditation and killing your darlings and this essentialism.
Oh, nice one. Nice, yeah.
That'd be like when you daily practice meditation, even if it's just for 10 minutes, you're actually practicing this act of essentialism. Essentialism.
Absolutely.
Kill the darlings, lean into unattachment.
Yeah, because when you try to meditate, when you try to concentrate on something, your mind brings up a darling. Like, the squirrel thing. It's like, look how fascinating this is. Look how interesting this is. Look at this thing that you shouldn't forget. And these are all the darlings of the mind, if you will. It's a very good one. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. No, I find that that those, the daily practices of building your bravery. So I also recommend doing impermanent stream of consciousness writing, where you like write, just like vomit words on a page for a portion of time and then delete or remove or get rid of it.
Morning pages kind of writing.
Yeah. Well, morning page, like radical morning pages, basically, because you're throwing that away right away. You're not holding on to it. And I just have seen in my own life, and then also in all of my other clients and students' lives and in my audience's lives, that when we can practice those microcosms of killing micro darlings, basically, that we're building our muscles to make these moments where it really does matter. It's not just a squirrel brain moment. It's actually like oh my gosh, this business is going to go bankrupt. You're able to default to, like you said, you're able to default to this like Zen essential state that doesn't have to involve struggle and strife and pain. It can just be, well, this is going to require some more discipline. Here we go.
Yeah, or activity or elimination choices. Our abbot used to say something that keeps coming back to me, and I use it a lot. Life is made out of choices. And it sounds like a throwaway comment, but it is actually so very powerful if you start thinking about it, because we're making a choice every moment of the day. This much sugar in my tea or that much sugar. Turn left here or turn left there. And the color of your socks. And there's a million choices that you make. And a lot of them you don't really do consciously. It's a sort of passing thought, I'll have this one instead of that one, and Mountain Dew instead of Coca-Cola. You don't really pay a lot of attention to the choices that you make. But each choice has a consequence, obviously. So if you start getting very deliberate about your choices, you program a different kind of experience of what happens in your life. You start to bring it again from the not aware level of consciousness, you bring it into the aware level of consciousness, and then you realize that while making this decision over and over again actually doesn't benefit me, doesn't make me happy. Now, then you can take it a level higher. Then you can start to think about decisions that you need to make repeatedly, but then you decide it only once. So you go back again to limits and habits. For me, I never have to decide what I'm going to wear, because my trousers are either blue or cream colored, and my shirts are 90% of them are white. I reach into the cupboard, I grab something clean, and I put it on, and I'm dressed, and I look, well, as I always do, but I look presentable. So this whole decision about, and of course it doesn't work for everybody, because there are people who really enjoy dressing in a certain way and changing things up, and that's fine. But this is one particular area where I'm not interested in making that choice over and over again. So I've made that a choice once, and I live with it. And I can revisit it and start incorporating, pink shirts into my wardrobe if I want to at some point.
And I think that's called, or that's known as like the Prada technique or Prada method or something like that. Yeah. And there are many, Obama, Mark Zuckerberg, that a lot of them do that same kind of.
Steve Jobs, I think Einstein.
Yep. They all do the same kind of thing with their fashion choices, but you can also do that same choice with your emails, say, for instance. So if every day you're checking your emails, but every day you have this subtle urge to check your emails all the time, but you actually don't want to do that all the time, making a one rule that says, I only check my emails between the hours of 12 and 2 p.m. Then you know if you get triggered or, like something comes up and you have to have that urge to go check your email at 5:30 p.m. when you're with your family,
yes,
that is
exactly.
I've already made this decision. I don't have to struggle through this anymore. I have already made this decision.
And in fact, I think this is something that everybody should consider about how you react to impulses. Because the decision to go and check your email again, or to pause your work and go scroll on Facebook, or go watch Netflix, or whatever, these are decisions that are not made by you, right? Because a lot of these companies have a whole panel of scientists figuring out exactly how to get you hooked on going back to the platform, on checking your inbox again, so the decisions to do something like this, in a lot of cases, actually isn't your decision. Now, realize how scary that is. Your well-being, your state of mind, your productivity, your financial results is all being influenced. Now, financial results, if you're an entrepreneur, are being influenced by people whose interest is to get your attention because that makes them money.
Yeah.
And these people have control over the decisions that you make. Holy crap. We need to do something about this. Well, we can't do that on a worldwide scale yet, unfortunately. But we can go to personal.
No, but you can do it on a policy level scale. I know we just went through the GDPR season where everyone was sending out new privacy policies and notices. And so that's an example where someone put their foot down and said, enough is enough. We need to make some rules, even if they're a little bit ridiculous, and make everybody send the same email from a bajillion places. But that decision-making process where you make the one decision and create a policy for yourself or your lifestyle or your family or your client relationships, those risky decisions, you can improvise within your situation and within your bravery to make instate these boundaries that allow you to have more freedom and more space to do what you want to do. Mm-hmm. Martin, this has been such a refreshing conversation. Thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure. Yeah, I hope it's useful for people.
I know. I definitely am going to be signing up for your daily emails because I would love to have a little bit of monastic entrepreneurial chutzpah to start the day. So,
well, don't worry. There's practically nothing monastic in the emails, but you can tell what's behind it. It's clear where I came from, even though I don't need to talk about anything spiritual.
Yeah,
because it's really about the mind, about how you manage your thinking and your decisions.
Right.
This is something people underestimate so much, that we don't think clearly and we don't make the right decisions because we let it run on autopilot. That is something that in these emails I always go back to, that how actually are you, where is your mind? If you ask a random person at any time, where's your mind? You'll get very interesting responses because they don't know where their mind is actually wasting its time.
Right.
So yes, that's the daily emails. They're short ones. And do I do a pitch here, or are you going to post a link?
Oh no, I was just saying I'm really excited about signing up for your emails. I know that we're going to put the link to sign up for those emails in the show notes. So
okay, cool.
If you're interested in that, you can go check out the show notes, and a link to Martin and all of his stuff is going to be there. But I am just so grateful that you joined us today for a little School of Bravery and bare naked and showing us your bare naked bravery today. It is really wonderful. So thank you for showing up.
My pleasure. It's been really fun.
Beyond your free bravery bundle, which is always available by visiting emilyannpeterson.com/join, your brave takeaway from today's show is to try out Martin's suggestion of putting a new idea on the shelf this week. So the next time you get a brand new idea for something creative or business related or relationship wise, whatever it is, put it on the shelf. Figuratively speaking, put it on the shelf. And if it pops back up 3 times, or if you get keep putting it back on the shelf until you get a hell yes, basically. I have been trying this idea for a while since I spoke with Martin the first time he and I got together. And it has been so great. So great. I think all the time when we are as creative people, we're always coming up with brand new ideas, and it actually sometimes doesn't help us to be coming up with so many brand new ideas. And sometimes just the act of putting it back on the shelf and waiting until it's an absolutely wonderful idea, that's a good idea. Just that in and of itself is a great idea. So put it on the shelf and try it out this week. And I think you'll see that it's actually a really, really wonderful suggestion. If you would like to hear all about your favorite parts of today's Bare Naked Bravery, you can find Martin Steller and myself on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and all the other places. You can go ahead and tag us so that we can cheer you on and see what you're up to. That would be awesome. If you are interested in joining the School of Bravery and becoming one of my students, one of my clients, I would love to work with you. just go visit schoolofbravery.com for more information about how to get started and what your next steps can be. In the meantime, that's it for our show this week. Thank you so much for listening. We have put all the links in the show notes for today's episode, so you can go check out Martin and all of his things at martinsteller.com and over on Twitter. And if you enjoyed listening to this episode as much as we enjoyed making it for you, then I recommend that you give us a review and rate the show in your iTunes desktop app or on your podcast app on your phone. That really does help us out a lot. And it's part of spreading the bravery far and wide. If you are digging the music in today's episode, that's because it's brought to you by Lee Rosevere. And with that, I am just so excited about who we have coming up in the funnel of wonderful guests on the calendar. So please be brave, be yourself, be vulnerable, be imaginative, be improvisational, because the world needs more of your bare naked bravery.